seen that intro a few times. It still makes me laugh.
That's funny. I'm Chris.
I'm Jordan with PDQ.com.
Yeah, well, he got it. Welcome to the show. Today we're discussing one of my all-time favorite topics, PowerShell, which you might already know if you've watched this before.
This one's more about PowerShell 6 Core, which is slightly different from the Windows PowerShell we're used to.
Yep. We got a lot to cover, though, so let's just jump right in. Cool. Awesome. Okay.
All right. I guess the first thing we have to go over is it's not on by default or installed by default like normal Windows, so we have to actually install.
Ooh, that's fancy. Little distinction about this, just so you guys know, Windows PowerShell and PowerShell Core are very different. Windows PowerShell is not available as version 6.
PowerShell Core, as of now, has about 40% of the commands.
Oh, wow.
That regular PowerShell. That's not counting different plugins and add-ons you can do.
Oh, cool. Well, rock on.
All right. So here's the where the install file is. We actually have that in our bonus content, or I hope we do.
We should. Check it out.
We should.
Go download it.
Just go download it. Just time we got the install here. It's just a standard MSI. You could send this from deploy as silent, and it would go very quick for you.
Yeah, and actually, kind of a side note, if anybody who's watching here is curious about having this in their environment, you should be able to deploy this via PDQ deploy. If you're interested in seeing that in the package library, let us know. Kind of debating that just because, PowerShell Core is very specific to cross-platform, so just wondering.
All right. Once it's installed, to run it, it's just in the search bar. It's PWSH.
Ooh, push.
Push.
Or so it has been called.
I think you have details on why it's not POSH anymore. I think that was taken.
Yeah, POSH was kind of the old acronym that a lot of people used over the years, but I believe POSH was taken in a lot of the different repos in Linux, and so we decided to go with, they decided to go with PWSH for PowerShell.
Yep. All right, and that's it. We actually already have it installed. It goes that quick.
What?
It's a little bit more involved when we're putting on Linux, where we're showing the cross-platform connectivity. It's other machine we have is a Linux one.
Well, we'll do that.
All right, so this one, instead of needing to just download the file from a website, you use the kernel. We're using Ubuntu 16.0.4.
So this that you're running, where'd you get this information?
This is from, if you hit the instructions next to the download file for the Linux installer, it'll actually give you the command line you need to install it from the repositories.
Yeah, so on one of those bonus links on the PowerShell GitHub page, there's a link for a bunch of different operating systems for the direct downloads, as well as instructions to get them using this method where we're adding the keys, and then I think we're going to add the Microsoft, the repo to add PowerShell. But you can follow along.
Yeah, so the first line we're adding that repository, and then the one we're doing now is going to be to register it. That's just so when you update, you don't have to go and find it every time. It's just included in your search.
That makes it easy. I like easy. That's why I do PowerShell. It kind of allows me to be productively lazy.
Yeah, so we're not really sharing these ones with the bonus document just because depending on which version of Linux you're using or what type it's going to be different. So it's just something that's best looking at the instructions, and they'll give you the proper ones.
Good plan. Okay, so we ran that.
Yep, and so now we have that registered. Now we're just doing a apt-get update, which for Ubuntu means it's just going to go out to the library and make sure that it has all of the latest versions. Everything's up to date.
Cool. Well, that's good. That's a lot. I love it when text flies by on the screen. I don't know if it just comes from, like, when I was a kid, I thought, man, I like computers when things are flying through the screen. Probably why I really liked the Matrix when it first came out, because just letters and green and horizontally flipped Japanese characters everywhere.
And if it's not red, it means it's going well.
Cool.
All right, the last one's the install. We're just doing -y so we don't have to hit yes on a whole bunch of prompts.
Confirm this. Yes. Good. Good deal. So it's going through and doing stuff.
Yep. And that's it right there. We now have PowerShell 6 on both machines, but if we're going to be doing cross-connectivity, we need another piece of software called OpenSSH.
Okay, so from here, if I just installed it, how do I run PowerShell?
It's the same way in Windows, just PWSH.
That's it.
There it is.
Show me that, prove it to me that this is PowerShell. I don't believe you.
Oh, I have to check my own typing.
Spelling it correctly matters, folks.
And there's a get child item, which is in Windows PowerShell. LS you can use as an alias for get child item, but with PowerShell 6 Core, to make sure that's not broken, they broke those, so LS is actually back to its Linux version.
Yeah, I think all aliases that were made in Windows PowerShell for Linux flavors of commands, all of them are removed across the board. So. Cool. Well, now you got PowerShell. This is exciting.
All right, so next we're going to try to get... I got the wrong quotes. Give me 1 second here. We have to get OpenSSH.
Oh, okay. One of the big features of PowerShell 6 is this cross-platform communication between Windows, Linux, Unix, Mac, whatever, right? One of the neat things that they did for this, because probably the most common transit is using SSH. That's what they implemented for PowerShell. So that's what we're going to show you here, is using OpenSSH to communicate with Linux, in this case Ubuntu Linux, and Windows via SSH, right?
And where we download that, I think this is also in our bonus content. There's just a link here. It also gives you steps on how to install it. But what it does is it basically gives you a zip file, and you just export out. On this one, we put it on program files. OpenSSH is the name of the folder. You don't have to use that one, but all the examples we have, assume it's in that location. Okay.
Yeah, if we have a question, we'd love to see one.
Dear Chris and Jordan, what are the primary differences between 5 and 6? Thanks, Mary M.
Hi, Mary.
Hello.
Good question. Can you take it?
So the major difference is they're built on a different version of .NET.
Yes.
I think 6 is on .NET Core, which is why not every command from Windows 5.1 will work on 6 Core.
Yeah, so one of the distinctions too is when you say between 5 and 6, that's delightfully ambiguous, because there's Windows PowerShell 5 and Windows PowerShell 5.1, and then there's PowerShell Core 6, well 6.0.2 at this point, but what he said, .NET Core is what PowerShell Core 6 is built on. That's why it's called Core, .NET Core. It's slimmed down, just so you know.
It is being updated constantly, so if commands aren't there, there's a good chance it will show up in the near future.
Absolutely.
All right, so all we're doing after that download, we extract the files from the zip folder. Within there's actually an install file built in.
It's an install PowerShell file.
Yep.
Convenient.
We're doing execution bypass. It's not a signed script. I read over it myself. If you're going to do this at home, I would recommend you read through it yourself. You don't want to run anything you don't
Wait, hold the phone. So you're telling me if I download something off the internet, I should read it before running it?
Seems like a good idea.
Okay. Oh, we got errors.
I got the wrong quotes again.
I think that red might kind of be hard to see, so we might want to change that at some point.
We should. Did I not keep it saved? Let's take
We're about to find out. So always take a look at that. Part of the pre-staging stuff, we wanted to copy out that folder to OpenSSH. What you're going to happen with this one is just you can run it locally from an administrative console, whether it's calling it from command prompt, calling it from PowerShell itself. You can run this and get OpenSSH installed, but this is going to be required for you to do the communication between Windows and another client that has SSH configured. So it is. And so this red, let's change this. We have a little command here. We're going to change the errors to look green. And now when you type an error, it should be green. So hopefully that should be better to read.
Hopefully that's a little bit more readable.
Yeah, good.
The green is.
I always change red when I get on a new machine, because red is scary. It reminds me of like graded papers and red ink and ugh.
Yeah. All right. And while we're going over that, I did finally get it to run.
Oh, good.
I'm not sure where my typo was, but it's fixed now.
Success! Look at that. It's right there.
Success. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So that's pretty much it. OpenSSH is installed.
Excellent.
So now we have to actually go back to Linux, and while OpenSSH is on by default, it doesn't allow PowerShell to SSH in without modifying the config file.
Okay, well, while we're kind of getting that set up, do we have any questions we can answer? Or do we have any questions? Maybe? Perhaps? Perhaps not? I guess we don't have questions? All right. Okay.
Dear Chris and Jordan, is it more convenient to stick with PowerShell 5 or 5.1 or switch to PowerShell 6 Core for Windows-only environments? Thanks, Monica H.
Hi, Monica. I'll answer this one. If you're in a Windows-only environment, I'm going to highly recommend you stick with Windows PowerShell. As Jordan mentioned, it's about 40% comparable to PowerShell Core is about 40% comparable to Windows PowerShell, but you're going to lose out on a lot of functionality right now that isn't available via the .NET Core libraries. Work's being done to kind of try and balance those out to make it so that you could replace with PowerShell 6 in the future, but just so you know, you will be missing out a lot of functionality if you do start suddenly replacing with PowerShell Core 6. I will mention, though, that they can be installed side by side. So if you want to experiment with your own scripts that you have existing and see if they work, you're welcome to. And you can have Windows PowerShell 5 or 5.1 installed and PowerShell Core 6 installed, and they're fine. So,
yeah, even if you are, I'd say 30% of Linux or Mac, I think I'd still use 5.1 for all Windows and use 6 only when you're connecting across platform.
Good call. Good question. Sweet. So where are we at?
Another typo.
Yay, typo. So it looks like here we are modifying, like Jordan said, the SSH configuration files.
Yep. So it's just located in etc SSH. It should be there by default. If not, the repository's out there for installing it pretty quick.
Good deal. So what are we doing here?
We're looking for a file that says subsystem, and that's just basically telling the system what it allows to SSH in.
Okay.
Right there. So we have SFTP. We need one for PowerShell.
Oh, okay, because we're going to be allowing PowerShell to cross over through this. Makes sense.
So what is it? Subsystem, PowerShell is running the location of the executable, and then you're telling it to no logo, no profile.
Okay, and I'm going to highlight that just for posterity. This is what we added. Notice path is in Linux style path, so be aware. Cool.
All right, and then within Nano, it's Control O to save.
I think we lost focus. We'll have to click back on
And
there.
lose focus.
Yeah.
And then Control X is what gets you out of there.
Sweet. Awesome. So should be saved.
All right, so that's in there. After you make that change, you do have to. We're still in PowerShell. Actually, we'll do it.
Do we have to restart the service?
Yes, we have to restart the service before it will run.
Sure.
Oh, great PowerShell twins. With PowerShell 6, what are the minimum OS requirements? Thanks in advance, Ken S.
I think it's. I'm not 100% of this, but I think it's more dependent on the version of .NET you have over the operating system, but I don't know if there is a minimum or maximum.
Yep. So with all this, if you look on the screen here, so in the bonus content for the PowerShell, you should find all the supported platforms, and inside the anything that you're going to need to know is going to be listed here. I do not know off the top of my head. If anybody does, please speak up for if it's supported on, say, Windows XP, because it shouldn't be. But Jake, do you know?
On the in their documentation, they do have a compatibility matrix right now as far as support for different versions of Windows. The minimum supported version right now is 7. As it also lists the different Linux distros and the minimum version of OS X.
Oh, good.
And as far as minimum requirements goes, it is based on .NET Core 2.0.
Yes.
So you're going to need that at the very least.
Absolutely. Good call. So hope that answers your question. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Cool. And I guess I'll minimize this and let you continue.
All right, now that we have gone in there, we restarted the service. We're back in the Windows, so we should be able to remote with SSH with PowerShell connect into our Linux machine.
Okay.
So we're going to do enter-ps session.
Oh, okay, yeah. Enter-ps session is a way for you, if you're not familiar with the command, to engage and start a interactive remote session with another machine. So I can connect to another machine and say, hey, let me do command line thingies interactively. So it's really nice. Sure. You got that? Make sure that my head's not overlapping any of the text here. Yeah. Cool. So what we're doing here.
All right, so we have the command in there. If you have OpenSSH, you'll have a available parameter for hostname. And then so you put the hostname, which can be IP or the full name, and then the username for the Linux account you're using.
Okay.
I skipped the thing that I always skip.
Which is?
The environment variables. I even highlighted it so I wouldn't forget it this time.
Here we go. This is something that you may encounter while doing this, just so you know. A lot of these steps, the reason we're showing these is so that you can see that you're going to run into this. It's pretty straightforward in the instructions, but if you run into problems like we just did here live, you're going to be able to fix them. So right now, part of it is, as I recall, SSH is not part of your path, so you can't just call it via SSH, but we're remedying that right now.
Yep. So basically, as I did is in the search window, I typed in path, and it gives you access to your environment variables.
Okay.
And then I went into the user variables and added the SSH path, which for us, or the install step that we did.
Is there a C colon for that?
I hope so.
I can't see.
There's
Looks like we're
not.
missing one. It's kind of hard to see on this machine,
So it's where we export to is program files, OpenSSH.
Excellent.
All right, if you do that, you will have to close and open the shell you have running.
Easy to do. Got to reinitialize those variables.
I think I'm 0 for 8 on adding that when I'm doing this. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Practice make perfect. I just want to call out while he's doing this. How long have you been using PowerShell? Or excuse me, not PowerShell. Linux.
I have been using Linux for about 6 days now.
Look at this. I want to call it, if you've ever kind of been concerned about just getting your feet wet in PowerShell or in Linux, Unix, whatever, you can do it. I mean, 6 days. He's getting fairly comfortable in Linux here. So, little dedication. So, well, let me make sure to get that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, let's take a question.
Dear PowerShell twins, are there any widely used commandlets that have been deprecated from version 5 or added in 6 that we should be aware of? Thanks, Dr. Johnny D.
Hey, John. Do you have an answer?
I mean, the one I've been using the most when testing this is git or restart process,
Yeah.
or you can get child item. There's I think 1,250 commandlets built in 6. A lot of them are brought over from 5.
Yeah, I don't know of any deprecated ones explicitly or specific ones. I do know a lot of parameters have changed between some commandlets from Windows PowerShell 5 and PowerShell Core 6. And one I think is near and dear to your heart because Jordan had a blog on creating a hipster playlist using PowerShell and Spotify. Was it
Yeah.
Spotify?
Yep.
And with that, the way he describes that can be kind of condensed into basically one line with PowerShell Core, and I think we're going to have a blog at some point in the future kind of showing how to do that. And that's one new parameter that we have using OAuth, I think.
It did reduce my finest work to 1 sentence.
So yeah. I don't know, but Jake, do you know of any commandlets that have been deprecated or added specifically?
Like you guys said, I don't know that any have been explicitly deprecated. I think it's more they just haven't been ported forward yet.
Right there. So cool. That's why we assumed as much. So good question though. Okay.
All right.
So where are we at?
Well, right now, actually restarted the console and I entered a PS session.
What?
We're actually PowerShell with road SSH into a Linux machine right now.
And we're on Windows,
Yes.
connecting to Linux
Uh-huh.
from PowerShell
Absolutely.
over SSH.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, guys. Like, if you guys don't understand how this can change things, realize this. Using PowerShell syntax, same commands, you can have the same output happen on Windows, on various distros of Linux, on Mac, on anything that supports this. One syntax, and it does all the things. The one syntax to rule them all, and in the darkness, bind them. Yes, I did go there. Jake, do you have something?
And just for the viewers at home, when you did enter that PS session, that's against the Ubuntu machine, right?
Yes. Yes.
You didn't even have to specify that it was over SSH.
Oh, no, that's when I did the host name
call.
as the attribute. It automatically recognizes that it's going to be SSH.
Beautiful.
Good call. Good point. Good eye.
And just for a quick example, we did a get process where we grouped by username, and you see root. It's a good indicator.
It has a
that
lot of processes.
It does indeed.
Wow, that root.
So that's how we can get from Windows to Linux, but we can also go from Linux to Windows.
Okay, let's see it.
One thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to change the same config file.
Okay.
Since it is in a system location, you're going to want to run Notepad as administrator when you open it.
Right. Oh, that's because we copied and created that folder in program files, OpenSSH. So.
Yep. All right. It's in the same. So when we did the install.ps1, it put all those config files under program data SSH.
Excellent. So
Go
here we
find the file
are.
there. It's the same thing. We scroll down until we find the subsystem.
This looks very similar to what we did on that Linux box. So we're going to add, I'm guessing, something very similar.
Absolutely same line. The only thing that's going to be different is the path is going to be a Windows path.
Okay, well, good. We want to make sure to get all of that. You will notice that. We'll call that out. But when you're configuring this on Linux or Windows, just be hyper aware that different file systems use different syntax to navigate. So we did that, and
we added a line right in there.
cool. Look at that.
Horrible circle.
Yeah, well, circle.
Circle.
Oval.
All right. And then once we save it, we once again have to restart the service.
Okay. Well, how do we do that?
In PowerShell, restart-service.
You're still connected to a remote machine.
Indeed I am. That's not
How do I
gonna
know
work at
that? How do I know that? How do I know that?
all. It says the IP of the one we're
Show
entering
me.
into.
Circle. Let's circle this.
The IP of the one we're into, and it's /home/Jordan, which is my Linux machine.
Yep. So be aware of what your commands you're running. You don't want to do damaging things on targets that you're not expecting that to run. So.
Although if we had done it, probably just would have killed our session because we would have restarted the service that it requires.
Ooh. Delightfully fun.
All right, so now that we've added and changed the config file, we're going to go back to Linux, and it's the same thing. We're going to start PowerShell.
Okay. Push.
Yep. This time, instead of doing a PS session, we're just going to invoke command.
Okay, invoke command. For those who are not familiar, similar to enter PS session, it allows you to run a command against one or more remote targets. It's not an interactive client, though. We're not actually creating a session that we can then do all the things. We're actually just running one or multiple commands at once. So that's what we're doing here. So he's defining the host, the username that we're going to use, as well as the command that we're going to run. And that's via script block?
Yep.
Cool.
Just the attribute is script block.
Good.
And then you can do anything. We'll just go with the basics of get child item.
Okay, get child item. We're kind of leaving this pretty open-ended. You're going to have different tasks that you're going to want to run. You're going to want to create things, delete things, move things, copy things, do all the things. Because PowerShell Core 6 is a kind of a subset so far of Windows PowerShell 6, or excuse me, Windows PowerShell 5.1, you're going to find that some of the tasks that you're used to, like Active Directory user creation's not available yet in PowerShell Core, so just be aware. So,
You have a question?
Dear Chris and Jordan, other than PDQ webinars, what resources and strategies do you recommend to hone your powers into a PowerShell guru? Thanks, Patrick H.
that's a good question, Patrick.
So I think almost everyone starts in a similar way. Is they find a task that they don't want to do anymore, and they automate it away with PowerShell.
Yeah. If you have scripts that you've written in you have a batch file, you have I'm shuttering on the inside, a VB script file, anything that you've done and you've automated or have a simple task, convert that. Try it. Give it a shot. Or like Jordan said, find something that you have to do and force yourself to use PowerShell. Other resources to kind of stick with when you're starting to get a good overview of how things run and work and play. The PowerShell in a Month of Lunches book and playlist on YouTube are fantastic. They are a majority of people who start with PowerShell, that's where they started from. And it's a really good resource. And even if you've been doing PowerShell for years, it's worth a watch or read every now and again because you might have forgotten some things that you don't use often enough.
Yeah, the online community is really robust as well, so if you have any questions, chances are you're going to find an example of what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. And then use it. That's a big part. Use it, you learn it. So.
Okay. All right, so we did the same thing, the invoke command. This time it's say under sure want to continue. I just basically have to verify that I trust the machine I'm connecting to.
Do we?
We do.
Okay.
You can't just hit Y, you have to type out yes completely.
Be aware. Okay.
All right, now it's asking for my password.
Okay. Is it password 1?
Very close.
Okay. You have something?
Yeah. So you are doing SSH authentication. You're just doing username and password. Can you do key-based authentication?
You tell me.
I believe so. I haven't practiced enough. The person asking the question is nodding vigorously yes.
Yes, you can.
Yes, we can.
It's can. One thing to be aware of, though, that you cannot do that's not part of the syntax for using SSH is using PS credential objects. This is something that you cannot do. You can kind of get around that by doing some other things in PowerShell, but if you have any questions, reach out to us. We're happy to help. But this is using SSH. There's also using WinRM, and that makes it very, very different. So, and you can do that with Linux as well, and Mac. Just kind of make sure to enable it. We're not going to cover that today because it's a little more complicated. So, okay, cool. Dan, do you have any other questions?
Dear Chris and Jordan, do you have any scripts you have shared in the past or want to currently share that PDQ users may not have realized was missing from their lives? Thanks, Shakakal S.
Well, that's a great question. Do you have any scripts?
So recently I've mostly been doing stuff that's internal specific, but the one that I had is I wrote one for removing the Apex packages for all users, not just for the logged on user. Currently, there's no built-in way in PowerShell to do it, and it's worthwhile having if you don't want all of those bloatware on there.
Yeah, and you wrote a blog on that, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, so there's a blog out there. I have a lot of blogs out there. Give them a shot. One that I do use often is I like to fiddle around with Windows updates. I kind of have a bad habit of that, and so I like to explore with the Windows Update Agent API. Something I've been doing recently, just kind of looking at what's there. That's something I do. It's not something common that people are going to do. But as for scripts that you use on a day-to-day basis, man, there's so many that you could use. Just find a task that you do. Like I do a small little backup. I have a backup script that I run with PowerShell. I do constant, when I'm doing processes, killing processes, restarting services, pop up PowerShell, boom, type it out, it's done. That's just what I do. If it's something that I have to do more than once, I almost always do it in PowerShell and save it as a script. So. Someday maybe we'll have a section in our forums or community with PowerShell scripts that we can kind of all get together and brainstorm. do cool things.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So while we were talking, it looks like the command finished. So the major
cool.
difference, invoke command, it just went out, ran the command requested, and it came right back with the results, but we're not actually connected into the Windows machine.
Oh, interesting. How do I know I'm not connected to the Windows machine?
Because I'm going to use the highlighter without... oh my goodness. Not
Good try.
well. Not well.
Best
highlighter.
effort. Best effort.
It's still just PS.
Give him a clap, folks.
/home /Jordan. Art was not my forte in school.
Let alone via a mouse and keyboard shortcuts to make it look nice. Yeah, so cool. Well, fantastic. Is that it? That's all there is to it?
That's everything you have. We can now connect across platforms with PowerShell. You never have to leave your Windows environment again.
Wow, that is something neat that you guys really, like I said, embrace. There's a lot of tasks you have out there. I know with Windows PowerShell versus PowerShell Core right now, there's a lot of discrepancy, but they're working on that. Try your existing scripts on PowerShell Core. They might work. They might not. One of the big, ripples that have happened in PowerShell is DSC, desired state configuration. That's going to be big when we're talking as we go into the future with different operating systems and Windows, because then you can define how you want a system or how you want things installed or configured in one place and have it apply to whatever machine you want. So, but do we have any more questions before we move on?
Dear Chris and Jordan, with PowerShell coming to Linux as well, does that mean we can start deploying to Linux workstations and servers?
Ooh.
Thanks, Luke B.
Good question, Luke. Do you want to take this? Or
Yeah, I don't believe so, because the run reuse, the way it works is we run something that connects to the Windows machine and then runs the PowerShell.
Yes. Short answer, no, not with PDQ deploy. However, if you're doing this all from PowerShell, yes. So if you have a task, say you have a PowerShell script, you can create a PDQ deploy package that runs PowerShell script. Just remember to target a Windows host, maybe the same machine that you're deploying this from, say using localhost. That one, as long as it has targets built within the script, you can go target other, machines, Linux, Mac, whatever, to do the tasks that you need. It's something that I don't have many Linux, Mac machines that I work with on a day-to-day basis, but I do like the convenience that PDQ deploy has for keeping all my scripts together. Mm-hmm. So that's something I like. Another thing that you can do is with PDQ Inventory's tools. I love Inventory, and I love Inventory's tools. With those, since you can add non-Windows machines, you could add those. They're not going to be scannable, but then you have a reference to a machine. You add a tool that runs PowerShell Core 6 on your Windows machine, mind you, to run commands against this, and you can kind of do like SSH or over WinRM using OMI, and do that.
You are going to need PowerShell 6 set up and installed on the machine that has run and deploy.
Yes, good point. Yes, thank you. So that will require a little bit of footwork prior to this, but you can do that. You can even add PuTTY as a tool in Windows, in PDQ Inventory to then configure that prior to your PowerShell Core connections. This is something I do with some of the few ones that I have, so this is something that I like to do. But you said you have a follow-up question?
And a follow-up question from Luke B. Could we use PDQ Inventory's command tool to send a PowerShell Core command to a Linux target?
Deja vu. I'm getting a serious deja vu here. Yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yes, you can. Should be able to. But let me clarify that and specify that we can't run a remote command, because a remote command runs on the target. We're running we're running a tool locally on your machine that has PDQ Inventory installed to then run the command locally, which then connects remotely to your Linux target. So I do that a lot with some of the Linux machines that I have, the few that I have, to manage them. So it works. That's if we have any more questions, we're cool. May as well get them answered.
And our final question of the day, when are we getting a PowerShell script library added to deploy? Smiley face. Thanks, Steve C.
I appreciate the smiley face. Thank you. I know it's sideways. I can't do that. It hurts my neck. But that's a good question. That's something we might consider. I know I like PowerShell. I'm always a PowerShell proponent saying, let's do PowerShell all the things.
It's as far as I know, it's not on the roadmap, but it is something that's, I think.
And if it is on the roadmap or not, guess what? It's going to be a delightful secret for you.
That's right.
So in the meantime, though, check out our community. Check out our forums. Like, seriously, spread the love of PowerShell. I know I like to. We want to share PowerShell. We want people to be comfortable with PowerShell. We want, if there's questions, we can answer them. I know Colby is like a hawk on those forums, and answer some pretty cool PowerShell questions on those. I think we've seen other customers as well. So check it out. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them. So anyway.
All right, well, thanks for listening to us talk about PowerShell.
Yeah, absolutely. We love PowerShell. I love PowerShell. Go PowerShell. Yay. But I'm Chris.
I'm Jordan.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations, Luke B. and Ken S., winners of PDQ swag. Send us your info at webcast@pdq.com. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to hit up our support forums. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week.